Rev up your engines! Today I'm going to show you why you do not want to run over things on a highway with your vehicle. Now, this is a four-wheel drive Toyota RAV4 that did just that. Now, it's all-wheel drive, so it can go all over the place, but on a highway, you do not want to run over things because you can break things, you can bend things. This car's got a front-end problem. Customer tells me it's the passenger side that hit it on a highway. So the first thing we're checking is the passenger side. So we jack it up in the air. And of course, don't forget to put a jack stand under it so you don't get squashed. Now the tire's up in the air, so we'll pull it, no play. But when we pull it here, clunka, clunka, clunka. So it's moving back and forth. We'll remove the wheel, see what's going on behind there. So pull off the wheel. Off it goes. Now when we pull it back and forth, we can see the clunking is coming from the inner tie rod. This is the inner tie rod. Clunka clunka. When I really pull on it, you can hear it. Noise is coming from in here. When the wheel hits stuff, it's going to put a lot of strain on here. Now, unfortunately, it can strain everything else too. But that's what's obviously worn. So we start with the obviously worn part, the inner tie rod. Now, to get the inner tie rod off, you have to take the outer tie rod off. So we're going to remove the little pin, get a little pair of cutters and pull it out. Unfortunately, this car's from Canada. So everything's rusted on. I got to cut pieces and pull, but now I got the stupid thing out. We have to loosen the nut that's here on the other end. Nice and tight. And then hit it with a hammer. We'll give it a few whacks. Now, as you can see, this is loose, so we can unscrew it when we get the other end off. Then we'll remove the nut here, and we have to separate the outer tie rod. There's a tool for that. This is my tie rod moving tool. It does a neat job. You can try hitting it with a hammer, or you can use one of those forks that you slam inside with a hammer, but that's going to wreck the outer tie rod. If you were replacing the outer tie rod, you don't care, you can smash it off. But we're reusing it, so we're going to use this tool. As you can see, the tool fits over, and as you tighten it up, it'll pop it out. As you tighten it up, it'll pop it right off. There it goes. Now the tie rod's off. Now the outer tie rod screws into the inner tie rod, so you can put a wrench on the inner part, wedge it against the frame like I did, then we turn the outer to unscrew it. As you can see here, I got vice grip pliers real tight on the end of the outer tie rod. So now I can pull on here, that'll hold it in place, and it's coming off. We're lucky because this car came from Canada and they often will rust on, but we got lucky here, it broke loose and off it comes. They're long threads, but eventually you get them off. Woo-wee! Boy, they make this thing long. Now we gotta get this inner boot off to work on it, so there's a clip on the end. We'll get a screwdriver and we'll pry that off. We can grab the boot, comes off, believe me, eventually. There we go. Now we got to the inside. Now to get the boot off, we got to take this nut off. We want it to be on the same distance we put together. So we're going to measure it. And in this case, we put it right here and then see that that is the end. So we'll just mark this. So I've marked it and folded it. So now when I push this in, that fits perfectly. And that's how far in we'll put it when we put it back together. So now we can take this off the rest of the way. They sure make them long. Woo, finally. Then after pulling it, tugging there, we got it off. Now you need a special tool. There's a socket that fits over the top. It's the only way you can get that off. As you can see here, I got a whole set. The one that was in here is the one that fits. Then this fits over it. So on it goes. Fits over the end. Then you pull like mad. Yeah, and it loosens it up inside. Then you can take off the tool and do the rest by hand. It'll just spin right off. Once you break it loose, it's very hard to break loose. But once it's loose, here it is. Line them up. They're the same length. It's the right part. Now if you look closely at the old one here, you can see, I'll get it in focus, you can see here, these threads are damaged down there. That's because when it got hit, it damaged the threads. Now, we want to hope it didn't mess up anything else inside here. We'll know once we put it back together. So first thing, we just stick this in and thread it back in. Just screws in. Then we get the special tool, slide it on this one, and we get the pull, stick that in, tighten it up. But I do have to say, for my check once I put this on, The whole inside of the rack has play in it from being hit from the damage. So if this car is kept for any length of time, the whole rack assembly is going to have to be replaced because it has worn, see, the inside of the rack too. Not just the tie rod, but the inside. We'll see how it is when we put it together. But to fix this correctly, it's going to need a whole expensive rack. And this is all from hitting something. Slide the boot back on. Slide the clamp back on. You can see now that's on. And put the clamp on the inside too. I used a new one. Then screw the nut on, and we got our little device we made here. So we screw it until it fits on perfectly. A little bit more. Now it lines right up. Then we get the outer tie rod, screws right in. We just screw it until it reaches the nut. And we screw it, and we screw it until it touches the nut. Then we know it's just about in the right position. There we go, now it's flush with the nut. Now of course realize this is an estimate with the little gauge we made. So it's measured about the same. You're probably gonna have to take it to a front end alignment shop to get it realigned. This will give it a good approximation. Then the tie rod end goes right into the hole, and you put the nut on the top. There it is. Nope, wrong nut. There it is. We'll get it up, put it on here, and start tightening it. And then go to the inside here. You want this tight too. And put a new cotter pin in so it doesn't slip. Just goes right in there. Voila. And get your clippers and bend it back so it stays in place. And now comes the big test. Hey, it's not clunking. It still has a little bit of play in it because, as I said, that rack got worn. From hitting something here, it's boom, up it went. But with the new inner tie rod, no more noise at least. So now you know why not to run things over on a highway when you're driving your car, and at least how you can fix the most broken part yourself is if you got to change a rack. I don't advise people to do that yourself. That is an involved job. Half of the front end of the vehicle's got to be taken off. And as you see, it's no longer clunking, so it's better than it was. And hey, I mean, it's got some mileage on it. They always have some wear. As long as it's stable, I've had customers drive them years this way. And here's some bonus questions and answers. It's Zexy says, hey Scotty, I'm thinking about getting a Jaguar. What do you think? I think you need to rethink your choice. They're the biggest money pits out there just about. I had a customer a few years ago and she bought a used Jaguar. Said, oh, you know, I got this thing used for $8,000. I always wanted a Jaguar and I've had so many troubles with it. This will be the third time I had to replace the coolant reservoir because it's cheap plastic and it broke and it's leaking again. So I need to change that. But could you just go through the car and tell me? So I hooked up my scan tool and found like 47 trouble codes of what was going on with the thing. And I said, you know, these things are money pits. She says, you know, you're right. She says, I learned my lesson. I got it cheap enough and I'll never buy another one. Now, this is a woman who owned and ran a trucking firm. She had a lot of money, but she was smart enough to just buy a used one for a few $1,000s and then she was getting rid of it. Those are the biggest money pits on the planet. Beautiful looking. I mean, if you want a lawn ornament, you can park in your front lawn, shine it and look at it. Woo, it's great. Put it in a museum, sure. But drive it every day? No, big mistake. If you absolutely, positively have to have a Jaguar, lease one. Then you know how much money you're going to lose. You can get it out of your system. And if it does break, they have to fix it for free because it's a lease vehicle. But do not buy one if you value your money because they have no resale value. They fall apart as they age. And I mean, now they're half owned by the Chinese. First, the Indians bought it, and then they lost so much money, they sold half of it to the Chinese. And even they're having problems with them. B123 says, Scotty, I got an 09 Pontiac Vibe GT with a 2.4. I have a feeling the alternator's failing since the Pontiac Vibe and Toyota Matrix are sister. Could you replace the GM alternator with the nip and nuts the one Toyota uses? As long as it bolts on and the plugs are the same, yes. I had the opposite happen once. The local stores only had the stupid GM one, and I put the GM one on a Matrix, and it worked, plugged in and everything. As long as it fits and it plugs in, you can use it because they're basically using the same type of system. Now, if you find that the plugs and everything are different, you'd have to rewire it. So I'd say just go out and buy the stupid GM one and put it on. But as long as the plugs are the same, take a picture, unplug it, take a picture of the plugs, go to the auto parts store, see if it looks the same. If it does, hey, go ahead and use it. If not, it's kind of a hassle rewiring. In that case, I'd just say use the GM one. I mean, alternators aren't that poorly made. Even the GM ones should last quite some time. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.